Hi Bianca, thank you for joining me today. Bianca, can you tell me a little bit about your journey to becoming a sustainable fashion advocate?
Yeah, thanks Sam. Thanks for having me along today. So I run a small business called the Wardrobe Green, which is based just outside here in Ballarat. And I guess my journey with sustainability started along with that business. About 6 years ago now, I'd had my 3 little girls and I decided that I wanted to do something at home around them, and I knew I wanted to run some sort of business, and I'd always been a very passionate op shopper. So my decision to start my business was simply, it was good around the kids, I could do it with my children. So I started my business buying and selling pre-loved fashion. And I guess through that, quite organically, my passion for sustainable fashion and more the knowledge around sustainable living really come to light, because initially it wasn't, I was aware of it, but it wasn't something that I was thinking of every day like I am now. And my decision to op shop or start my pre-loved fashion business wasn't necessarily driven by sustainability. It was more, I loved op shopping. I loved fashion, and I loved taking my girls op shopping and things like that. So, but as I said, as my business grew and I guess I looked more into the impacts of fast fashion on everything. My passion for sustainable fashion really took on a life of its own.
Yeah. It's funny how sometimes it's just that little small seed that's planted, and then, you know, someone starts turning down like their thermostat in their house. And
That's
like,
right.
what else can I do to save energy, or what else does sustainability mean to me?
Exactly.
So,
and sometimes it's, you know, it's the sort of thing, once you know, and you can't unknow, you know, so
it's, that ice-shattering moment.
It really is, and there's been many of those moments through my journey of becoming a sustainability advocate, and that's, you know, the True Cost movie, and just, you know, following people, like-minded people on social media, and it's reading, you know, it can be a simple sentence that you see on social media that just triggers something, and you go, I didn't know that.
Or a statistic that you
read. A statistic, and you go, oh, now I know, I can't shop with that, you know, that brand, or I'm not going to do that anymore. I hadn't thought of that. So it really is about education and sharing that knowledge.
And can you explain to us, what does sustainable fashion mean exactly? It's quite tricky.
Look, it is, and I think sustainable or sustainability has been a buzzword for a little while now, and I think it's really important to understand what that actually means, because it can be thrown around a bit. So when we're talking about sustainable fashion, we're talking about fashion that considers its impact on the environment. So I guess that's a really simple way of putting it. It's considering its impact on our environment.
Okay, so in my head I sometimes think of it as like the opposite to fast fashion. Which leads me to my next question. So how does sustainable fashion differ to ethical fashion and fast fashion as well?
So ethical fashion, I guess, is an umbrella term where sustainable fashion would sit under. So ethical fashion not only considers the environmental impact, it also takes into account the impact on the social impact that it has. So people,
modern day slavery, we're talking about.
So environment and people. So when we talk about something that's an ethical clothing brand or ethical clothing as such, we're talking about looking at the design, right through to the manufacturing, farmers. We're talking about the lifespan of the garment, how we're caring for it, and right up to what we're going to do with the garment once we're done with it. So that's a true, I guess, look at what the brands need to consider to be truly an ethical brand. So it's very complex.
There's lots of little points in this chain that, you know, we're talking about the fabric and where the fabric comes from.
That's right. And exactly. The whole thing. And you know, good designers, really good, sustainable, ethical designers are thinking about, when they're designing a garment, they're thinking about the end of life. They're thinking about when this garment has been hopefully in circulation many, many years and passed down many generations. What's going to happen to that garment? What's going to happen to those fibres? Will it break down in the earth? And that's a really good way of thinking about it, because we need it to be circular to minimise. Exactly.
And also items that are easily mendable, so that can be mended, that, you know, and they're timeless pieces.
Absolutely.
Is probably another thing
absolutely.
that I've noticed.
Yes, exactly. And I think, you know, it can be so easy to think about ethical and sustainable fashion as being more expensive, and it is more expensive because it's made to last. It's as simple as that.
And I suppose when you were talking about garment workers before, so when they're actually paid what they're worth, and what they deserve to be paid.
Yes.
And even, you know, talking about the farmers who are growing the cotton, etc., when they're actually paid the right amount of money.
Exactly.
That,
it reflects in the price of the garment. And, you know, and that's right, talking about our farmers, making sure that they're not in an environment that's dangerous, you know. And we hear stories, and I think the True Cost movie mentioned this as well, is that, you know, the dyes and things used in those processes that go into their rivers. And, you know, I remember reading once that some of the villages around some of the factories would know what colours are in season because they would see that colour through their rivers.
That's right. I've heard that too.
There's quite shocking.
Yeah, there's another documentary called River Blue or Blue River. And they talk about that as well, from denim and leather.
And people are often shocked with the amount of water that is used to put a basic t-shirt or a pair of jeans, you know, into action. And I just have to think about all the pairs of jeans I see at the op shop. So many jeans.
I think I read the statistic. I think it's about 10,000 litres for one pair of jeans, and that doesn't even include once you get those jeans
washing.
home and you're washing them.
Right.
And if you wash them, you know, weekly like however often you wash your jeans after every wear.
Yeah, it's quite alarming, and that's another one of those statistics, all those things that you read and go, oh my gosh, like it's quite alarming. And like I said, there's so many pairs of jeans in the op shops.
You can get a pair for $9. I think I've seen them in some of their cheaper shops.
Yeah.
Okay, so and we've spoken a little bit about the garment workers. What's making them stay in these conditions? Like why?
And look, and for
why is this happening?
Exactly. And I think that's a common thought. You know, well, if they're not getting paid well and they're working in dangerous conditions, why don't they just go and get another job? But unfortunately, it's not as easy as that. So in a lot of situations, garment workers are fearing for their life, for their safety. They're already subject to abuse. They're uneducated. When we're talking about in Australia, there's a cultural barrier as well. So. And there's no other options. Often the garment worker is the sole breadwinner, if you like, for the family. So for them to put up their hand and say, I don't want to work here anymore, that may mean that they don't get any other work, because they might be blacklisted then as a garment worker and not get any other work. It's that, unfortunately, it's that same old story. Speaking up, unfortunately, for a lot of them is not an option.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And when we do think about that exploitation, we often think of low income or developing countries. Yeah. But that's not always the case. No. Did you mention Australia just then? Yeah. So it can happen here in Australia.
Absolutely, and it is. Absolutely. So, and I think this is something that really surprises people as well, because you think of fast fashion sweatshops, you think, third world countries, not happening here in Australia, but it absolutely is. Right here in Melbourne, absolutely. And the ECA, Ethical Clothing Australia, is a fantastic organisation that really works on accrediting businesses and making sure that the garment workers, our local garment workers, are protected and paid well. But it's definitely, just because we see something that's Australian made, we often think, straight away, ethical, sustainable, it's made here in Australia. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. It's fabulous to have things made here in Australia, because, as we know, it can be few and far between. A lot of our manufacturing went offshore quite some time ago, and that was simply to keep the costs of fashion low. Down, because it's, of course, not the same rules and regulations and things like that offshore. And brands could get away with a lot more than if it was on our shores. Having said that, it absolutely still does happen. And as I said, the ECA is a great organisation that tries to stamp that out and make sure that everyone's being paid the right things, that they're working in safe conditions, and that, everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
So just on what you said then about keeping the prices low, so that's one big key of fast fashion, is it? It's really low prices.
That's right, because it's competitive. So the brands basically, it's a bit of a bidding war. They cheaper to sell more, but with that pressure that we that as consumers we're buying cheaper, and it continues this horrible cycle where the factories want their garment workers to work harder and longer for less pay. And unfortunately, and they're competing against other fast fashion brands. Then
and they've got such a pull because they're enormous. Like we're talking about some of these brands, which I won't mention any by name right now, but they're world worldwide.
Absolutely.
Like you're talking Europe, America, and you know these parts of Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, and the fact they're big jobs, they're big commissions, they're big amounts of money. So the factories don't want to lose that money, you know. So but the pressure ultimately falls on the garment workers.
Yeah,
you know,
and the environment.
And
so
they're
doing things because using chemicals and.
The garments becoming more cheaper. Yeah. They're using not natural fibres, they're using man-made fibres. Or it's not organic cotton, they're using pesticides and fertilisers to grow the cotton, right? Yeah, exactly
so
right.
It's a real... all these knock-on effects
there sure is.
Of the fast fashion industry.
There really is.
Just while we're on it, just so that our listeners know, I did read, so going back, say, I don't know what the year is, say 50 years ago, there was the 4 fashions which aligned with the seasons. Yes. So you would change your clothes.
That's right.
So how many seasons do they say now?
Weekly. Weekly we're seeing clothing stores are having a new shipment of new fashions. So yeah, exactly. If you think about the time that goes into the design and manufacturing, like it takes time, but we're managing to churn out this fashion every single week. So yeah, we're talking an enormous amount of clothing a year. And if you think about those garment workers that, they're working long hours, they're not given toilet breaks a lot of the time, they're not given food breaks, they're pushed to the brink, and often in really unsafe conditions as well, because again, cheap, keep wages low, keep the costs down. So it's, there really is people suffering so that we can buy, new fashion each week.
Yeah. So part of us doing our part, you mentioned before the ethical clothing. Is it Australia? Yeah. So that's a website that we can go on.
Yeah, it is. They have a great website actually, and they have a search function on there.
Yeah.
So if you decide that, okay, I want to support local, I want to know that they're accredited, that they're ethical, that they're sustainable, then you can get on that website and actually search up winter coats.
Okay.
And it'll bring up some brands that...
So you know where to go to.
Exactly right, and you know that they're accredited. So they look at their processes. It's not an easy process to go through too. So if these brands have made it on this list, we know that the local garment workers are being paid correctly and treated well, that they're using sustainable practices, and they're good quality clothes.
They're really going to last.
Yeah, exactly.
Timeless pieces. Yeah, definitely. And when I speak to people about ethical fashion, a lot of people, especially buying new, not secondhand, but buying new, people talk about the cost of it. They say it's too expensive, I can't afford it. Yeah. Do you know, so can you talk to me a little bit about maybe why it costs so much and why we think that we can't afford it?
Yeah. Look, and this is something that comes up a lot too when I do speak about ethical and sustainable fashion. People sort of see it as a bit of a privilege, that it's a sort of a rich person's game. I do understand that side of things, and as I mentioned a bit earlier, it does cost more because we're paying people correctly.
In the supply chain, everyone's getting paid a piece.
Exactly right. And we are, we're looking at more natural fibres, and we're looking at pieces that will be timeless and well made and passed down through generations. So that is more of an investment than walking into a chain store and getting a t-shirt, that might fall apart within a few washes, and that's the reality of it. So what I would say to that, 2 things. One is that, find a piece that you really really love, and you feel it's going to be timeless in your wardrobe, and instead of paying your $20, $30, $50 here and there, really put that money aside and save for that special piece. So because those little purchases add up, and then before you know it, you've got this gorgeous coat or this beautiful dress that you can love and keep for many years. So that's one option. The other option that I say to people, because it can be overwhelming, it can be this sort of feeling of, where do I start? I want to do better want to do better, but there's so many websites, there's so many articles, there's so many social media platforms. Where do I start? So the simplest thing I can say is to choose pre-loved. It is a better choice. So, and everyone can afford to go to the op shop, and there's a dollar rack. There's you can get in there. It's a really affordable and achievable way to lessen your fashion footprint. So that's definitely where I would steer people as a starting point if they feel like they're in a stage in their life where it's all too much. And I understand that. We're all busy, and I've once had really small children, and thinking about sustainable fashion was, but op shopping,
and
I could always, and the cost, a lot of women might not be working at the moment with little ones, and to think about buying a $300 coat might be completely out of reach, and that is completely understandable. But popping into the op shop and shopping the coats rack and getting one for $5 or $6 is completely achievable. And it's an option for everyone, really, and it's a more sustainable option because we're using resources that are already there.
Yeah, definitely. And there's just further on that, you just made me think when you're talking about social media platforms, we also have these marketplaces.
Yes. It doesn't
online.
always have to be the op shop. So, and I think this is really great because I've come into contact with a lot of people that just really don't like op shopping.
Yeah.
They really don't.
Yeah.
And, that's hard for me to fathom because I love it.
Yeah.
But I totally understand that, it's not for everyone. But that doesn't mean that pre-loved is off the table completely. If op shopping isn't for you, friends will say to me they find it very overwhelming. There's so much to look at. It's very different to shopping in a retail store. I want that in a size.
White t-shirts.
That's right.
Yeah.
You do have to have the time and commitment and the patience to get in there and find those gems. So I definitely would say that if you are in that category of feeling like that's a bit too much, there is wonderful websites, businesses like my own and others, and also just people on social media,
marketplaces,
like
Facebook,
exactly.
eBay.
And, so there are so many options to jump on and support pre-loved, to buy pre-loved.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It doesn't always have to be op shopping if that's not your bag, and that's completely fine too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Great, thank you.
No worries.
Now, so you're obviously an avid op shopper.
Yes.
And can you tell me a little bit about, just maybe a bit of history of you and your op shopping journey?
So I have op shopped since I was very young. I have some really fond memories of op shopping with my mum. Going out for op shop days on a Saturday. And back then it wasn't really fashion, but it was board games. We'd love going op shop board games and bits and pieces like that. So I've been op shopping for as long as I can remember, but I think what's interesting is how much it's changed over those years. It's very, very different now, and I think once upon a time we'd be like, oh, it's from the op shop, and we wouldn't sort of say but now it's completely different. I mean, I've always been like, I've got it from the op shop. I'm really proud of it, but for some people, not so much. But it's definitely evolved. One, there's so much more of them. And a lot of the op shops are so well curated that they're more like a retail store. So, and I think that's really important to acknowledge too, because then we do cater for everyone, that's new to op shopping. It might be, that's the one for me because I want a more curated look. I'm easing into it, right down to op shops that, are really getting there, and there's baskets which I love. Like, I love getting down to the bottom of the basket and what can I find in there? And that's where I find the real treasures.
Or everything's like jammed.
Yes, I love it.
I love it. Move the coat hangers apart.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll just spend an hour just, fossicking through and seeing what I can find. So
it's like a treasure hunt. Really, it's like,
I love
it. It's like adults treasure hunting.
It really is. Yeah. It really is. That's you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is. So we cater for all different types, but definitely it's been interesting to see that evolution of op shopping, and now there's social media accounts that are dedicated just to op shop style.
Even in lockdown I saw some that like the Rotary clubs in Ballarat are doing it on Facebook now.
Yeah, so great. Yeah. So it has come a long way, and it's definitely not something now to be sort of hidden. People loud and proud about being from the op shop and costing $5, etc., etc. And
it's almost like you're bragging about how cheap you got it for in that sense.
Exactly right.
Look at this, I got that. Pure 90s.
Yes, that's right.
And so tell me, when you shop at op shops or secondhand, do you shop for the rest of your family as well?
I do.
So your children and your partner or husband?
Yes, I do, absolutely. I'm one of those op shoppers that I'll shop the entire op shop. So even if I've only got 20 minutes, I'll sort of go in and make sure I touch all bases. Look, I bought many presents for my children and for other friends and family from the op shop. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I have found the most amazing children's books that have look like they've never been opened at the op shop. I've found the most amazing clothes for my girls and shoes, like honestly,
brand new,
everything, brand new. Hair stuff, like just toys, absolutely. And my girls and I love op shopping. I've got 3 little girls, and that's definitely one of our school holiday activities where we'll go for an op shopping day, just like I do with my mum, and we just love it. And I'll give them their $5 each that they get to go and spend.
And
and
they probably get like 3 things.
Going out with bags full of stuff. It's fun and really.
I see where you're coming from there. So I often take my daughter, who's almost 5, I take her op shopping, and she finds it such a treat because in a way, like, she's gentle, but she can still play with the toys. And they've got little areas set up in a lot of the bigger op shops where there's like a little space for them. They might have a colouring book that they've been given with some pencils, etc. So it is actually really family friendly.
Yes, and I think that's really important. Because you want to, I know when my children are a bit older now, they're all at school, but when they were younger, it's hard going into shops when you've got kids and you've got a pram and a toddler and you're sort of trying to wrangle. Exactly. But I felt like I could relax a bit more in an op shop. Because they could play with the toys.
And I think because there is that rummaging atmosphere at an op shop, like they expect you to go and rummage. So the toys are kind of in big boxes a lot of times. So they want you to rummage.
Get in there.
Yeah. So it really is a family friendly activity.
I agree.
And I have started buying. My husband, I've turned into my mother-in-law. Started buying my husband's clothes from the op shop.
It's fantastic. It's amazing. As I said, what you can find is amazing. It's that old saying of someone else's trash is your treasure. Like it really is true.
100%, definitely. And so, can you tell us a little bit more about op shopping in Ballarat? So maybe some hot spots where to go.
Absolutely. I think we're really lucky here in Ballarat. We've got some amazing op shops. Pre-COVID, I think we were upwards of 25, which surprises people, but they are hidden away, some of them. And and then obviously we've got the bigger ones, but I think we're down a few post-COVID. A couple of my favourites didn't come back, but that's okay. I've found some others to fill those gaps, but we're definitely spoilt for choice. There's some beautiful ones. We've got some amazing ones in Howard Street. That strip there is fantastic, and often my children and I will park at one end and just make our way through the op shops. So I think there's 3 in a sort of strip down there, which are just really great. And again, they sort of range, from more curated to not so curated, depending on how you like to op shop. But I think that we are really lucky to have, the church op shops that, you're really finding things for $1 or $2, up to your more curated, like the Salvation Army and Vinnie's, but still affordable.
Yeah, actually, since you mentioned that, the little church one that I think is across the road from Grammar up there, that is, I've found many a bargain there. They often have a rack out the front, and it's like 5 items for $1.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I picked up a dress once, it was a beautiful dress, and it had a bit of pen mark on it, so they were basically giving it away, and I Googled how to get pen out of a dress. Hairspray.
Yes, see, there you go.
So there's things that we can do that, like, you think, someone's given it away because they got pen on it, washed it, couldn't get it out.
That's right.
But I mean, we are in the age of information.
That's right.
You Google anything to get, like any stain, you can pretty much get out.
You can, and I think that talks to the fact that the busyness of life at the moment, and for a lot of people, when we lose a button off a shirt or a jumper, instead of mending it, it really is discarded, and that's where op shops come in really, I think, just a saviour, because there will be someone like me who will find that jacket that's missing a button. And can I tell you, hot tip as well, check the pockets of the jackets. Often the button that's fallen off is in the pocket. It's happened many a times to me, and I've gone, I'll just go home and sew that back on. That's great.
So you could probably just pop to the craft section, and there's probably a whole bucket of buttons in the same op shop.
That's exactly right. And I love to getting a jacket that might be plain black, and if there's missing a couple of buttons, I'm like, great opportunity to put all new fresh buttons on it and give it a new lease of life. So I think having those basic skills is so important for sustainable fashion as well. So if you don't know how to sew a button or take up a hem, and I'm talking not even on the sewing machine, just simple skills with a needle and thread, highly recommend. And again, like you said, get on Google, get on YouTube.
There's so many
and
tutorials.
Learn how to do it, because that is life changing if you're an op shopper, because instead of picking up something that's missing a button and going, it's missing a button, you go, missing a button, cool, I'm going to take it anyway, it's $1 or whatever it might be, because it's missing a button
for this dress that I paid, basically.
And like you said, getting stains out, where this age we can just Google it and figure out how can we get this off. And if you're really feeling inspired and crafty, often I've found really great pieces that have stains on them, and I've tried to get it off but haven't been able to, so I've sewn a patch, like a cool patch over the top of it.
Great idea. And it's modern mending.
It's modern mending.
What's that called?
Visible mending.
Visible mending.
So I've done that a few times.
That's a fantastic idea.
It really just adds to the feel of the if it's a knit. I've done a couple of knits recently with some visible mending, and they've turned out fantastic, because you just add a few more dots and then it looks like a pattern.
So
it can be really fun fun too. So those basic mending skills, highly recommend.
Yeah. Which are easy to learn and available online.
And the more you practice, and if you're practicing on an op-shop piece, that's okay. If you make a mistake, try again. And it's the perfect opportunity to really stretch those skills and get a bit crafty.
Exactly. And it can be a bit meditative almost.
It really
like
can.
that.
Oh, I'll just sit in front. I'll have my pile of mending.
Yeah.
Sit in front of the tally and it's a lovely feeling to actually fix something that might have went to landfill. Yeah, and I think that unfortunately, because the op shops get overloaded with so many clothes, because people often say, do you have to travel outside of Ballarat to source for your business? And I'm like, no, there is so much to go around. Like, there is so much. And
I did hear a statistic on it once, how much actually makes it through the doors of the op shop and how much it actually makes it onto the floor. It's less than 50% or something.
That's right. Because a lot of the op shops,
what's donated.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because a lot of the op shops don't have the resources to mend or to wash. I was talking to one, I did some work with some op shops a couple of years ago, pre-COVID, and they were telling me how they actually don't have the capacity to wash garments. So if they smelled or were visibly dirty, they went straight to landfill.
Oh, that's actually heartbreaking.
I know.
It's heartbreaking. So people out there, if you are donating to the op shop, make sure you wash them before you take them.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can mend it, please mend it. And still send it along, but just take that moment to mend it. But that's definitely something to consider as well. Just because we're donating it to op shops doesn't necessarily mean that it's going on to other people. So if you can pass it on to someone or mend it or make something else out of it, that's definitely your first option.
Yes. Yeah. And another hotspot, actually, you mentioned Howard Street, but Sebas here as well. So we're just on South Street. But Sebas, there's
had some new ones pop up.
New binnies there.
That's right. I've been to that many times. That's beautiful. Yeah. And well laid out, light and bright. See, once upon a time the op shops were a bit dark and dingy.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's not musty.
Yes, But now they're light and they're bright and clean, and it's a whole different experience. It really is.
So for those people who haven't op shopped for a while,
definitely go back. Or if you're new to op shopping, don't be scared to just have a wander and see
take
how
your time.
It feels. Yeah.
And what are your top tips for? I suppose when I was talking about this online going live with this, I was talking about how to do it effectively, because like you said, a lot of people walk in and they're overwhelmed. Or when friends say to me like, I don't know how you op shop, it takes so much time, and I go in there and it's overwhelming. Is probably the key word people
a lot of people say that to me.
How do we op shop effectively?
Yes, okay. So two things here, okay? So as I said before, I'm someone that shops the whole op shop because it doesn't overwhelm me, and I just love that.
You're used to it.
I'm used to it, exactly. I'm an experienced op shopper. If you are new to it or you feel like it is overwhelming, just focus on one area. So, for example, or even go in with a bit of an idea. I am a bit of a believer in let the op shop tell you what feels right. But on the other hand, if you're not that's more for an experienced op shopper. If you're not an experienced op shopper, go in with an idea of, okay, what am I looking for? What would I like to see? What area of the op shop do I want to look at? Is it a book? Do I need a new book to read? Or is it fashion? Go to that section, And also, even if it's ladies' fashion, there can be racks and racks and racks of ladies' fashion. But narrow it down again. I'm looking for a pair of jeans. I'm looking for a new dress. I'd like this. And just start small and take your time through that rack. Don't sort of feel like you have to get through it all. So start small and go into that section. Another thing I will say is it's still really important to try things on. So I'm guilty of it myself. You can fall in the gap of seeing something on the dollar rack and going, yoink, I'm going to take that. But you get it home. Sizing
doesn't fit.
Exactly. So unless you know the brand incredibly well and their sizing is consistent, which is, not always the case, you don't know how the fit is. And it can, it depends on how much is being washed, the fabric, all of those things. So I always recommend, regardless of the price, to take that time to try it on, because otherwise you just end up with more clothes in your cupboard that you're not wearing. Leave it there for someone else. So
definitely.
So trying on's important.
Actually, on that, I used to go out shopping with my sister-in-law in Melbourne, and she'd pull out things and I'd be like, oh no, I'm not going to wear that. And she'd be like, try it on. And I tried it on, like, how did I not see that was going to look great? Like, that's going to be
things
the opposite of that too.
Exactly. Things can look so different on the hanger. And the op shop is the perfect opportunity to stretch the limits of your style, like, to try new things, because you're not investing a whole lot of money. You're not contributing to more landfill or more resources being used. The garment's already there. Have a play in the op shop. Take that time to try a few different colours and things you wouldn't normally wear. And I say that with accessories too. The op shops are great for accessories. And, you know, people often say to me, I don't often wear necklaces, or I don't often wear hats. So I don't want to go and buy whole things and not wear them. Well, the op shop's a perfect opportunity to get a few pieces, try them out with some different outfits at home. If they're not quite right and you find you're still not wearing it, then you donate them back or pass them on to someone else. So you're not again using resources that are already there to have a little play around with your style without contributing to more consumerism.
Geez, you make it just sound so much fun.
Yeah.
I want to go shopping now.
Yes. Well, hopefully everyone else wants to go up shopping after this.
Fantastic. And is there anything else you can tell us about sustainable fashion that we should leave our listeners with today?
Look, I would just say that it's not about being perfect. I guess that's the most, because like I said, it can be overwhelming to think, okay, where do I start? What do I do? But I guess the most important thing is it doesn't have to, it's not about being perfect. It's not about ticking all the boxes, but it's about doing small things to make big changes. And if we all do that, it has a roll-on effect. We educate others. We talk about our style and our wardrobes in a different way. So it's just, and knowledge. Knowledge is power. And if we can share that with each other and have these conversations, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Bianca. That was wonderful.
My pleasure. Thanks, Sam.